This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it is 1 o'clock. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being able to be on the live call. I mentioned earlier to some people, but I know we've had some new people join in. In the case that you need to hop off the call for any reason, we are recording it so you can go back and watch anything and catch up on anything you might have missed. This is the first time I've ever had to do a webinar, so if any technical difficulties happen, it is probably my fault. As we go on, please, feel free to raise your hand in the little sidebar or type any questions that you have into the chat box, and I'll try to answer as we go. This is for many of you. Yes, can you not hear me, Emily? Are other people able to hear me okay, or not so much?
Yes. I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Got some technical difficulties, so all right, so probably some audio settings. Hopefully we'll be able to get that solved in just a minute for them. All right, as they hopefully get that fixed, we have some really great positive things that people are looking for to the coming year. Sarah's excited to improve our literacy. Daniil is excited to try something new. Emily is excited to maximize student support in the classroom. Mary Jane is excited to meet her new AmeriCorps member after her lovely Lenore finished her 4th year. So that's super exciting. We have a really awesome group of AmeriCorps members for this year, so I feel really good. Got a couple. Sorry, everyone, for the difficulties. All right, well, it's probably in the audio settings, so since those of you who can hear me, we're going to go ahead and move forward, and that will work. All right, so moving forward. So the agenda that we have, so we have new and returning site supervisors. We also have a new formula grant that we're adding into the program this year. I do want to go over just kind of the appropriate use of AmeriCorps members. Just as a reminder, this is something that Volunteer Iowa has requested that we do, these sorts of site supervisor orientations for both new and returning, to just go over all of these policies as a nice reminder. We'll also cover the AmeriCorps timekeeping systems, so the member timekeeping system as well as the site supervisor time sheets and some changes that will happen with those. We'll cover member orientation, monthly meetings, and training dates. So welcome to all of our site supervisors. As I mentioned, we have 2 grants this year. We have our K through 3rd grade reading program. The site supervisors are all instructional coaches at each of the building. So there's that list there. We also have our formula program, which is focused on teens. We have new site supervisors. Danielle Day has been with us for several years in our K through 3rd grade reading program for their summer positions, but she's coming to us with a teen program or a teen AmeriCorps member this year. We have added Mentor Dubuque to a new partnership with us, which is very exciting. They'll have a full-time and a part-time AmeriCorps member. And then Multicultural Family Center is back with a year-long members with us this year. So they'll have a 1,200-hour contract, same with the library. And that will, both of those positions will be focused on supporting teens, after-school programming, engaging youth, mentoring, whole big gambit. So we're trying to wrap the kiddos, making sure they've got something in school and out of school. So just a quick overview on the grants. The competitive grade level reading grant is a 3-year cycle. The AmeriCorps members are utilized as academic reading tutors. We have 3 contract sizes that our members can choose from. Those sizes are 300 hours, 450, and 675. Surprisingly, this year, 300 hours and 675 people are loving those. So if you know anyone who is interested in serving and they want to do academic reading tutors, we've got a whole lot of 450s left. The contract start dates for now that we're looking at will be September 9th. So Monday is the first day for our first group of AmeriCorps members. We'll have a second onboarding on September 23rd for the reading tutors and another on October 7th. Depending what recruitment looks like from there, we can also do one from January 2020 to the end of May 2020 at about a 20-hour-a-week position. The outcome goal that we have is to serve at least 600 students with 30+ intervention sessions, and we want 540 of those students to improve by 10 points and fast. Right now, for the last 2 years, we've kind of landed around serving close to about 500 students with 30+ sessions. But the really great thing, even though we're not quite at the number of students we want to get there, the number of students improving by their FAST scores is this last year and the year before, both years are 97%. So really great data coming from there. For the Formula Teen Engagement Grant, those are yearly grants that I submit. The AmeriCorps members will be programmers, mentors, and recruiters for teenagers in the programs. Their contract sizes range from 1,700 hours, 1,200 hours, 900 hours, and then there will be positions with leisure services and the Cultural Family Center for 300 hours over the summer. The contract dates for most of them will be September 9th through August 22nd, or variations of those dates similar to the school districts, but in 50-week contracts. The goal there is to increase the feeling of connection to the community with teenage program participants. We're approaching, quote unquote, health in more of a mental health and connection by trying to create spaces and create relationships that exist in the community for teenagers who may not feel like they have that as an option in other places outside of school. All right, so prohibited activities, my favorite piece with AmeriCorps. So what this means, these prohibited activities, this is a list that the federal government has put together and determined that when AmeriCorps members are serving, the AmeriCorps members cannot do any of the following things while serving or accumulating service hours or training hours. So basically, while they are getting paid by the AmeriCorps grant, they cannot participate in the following activities. So they cannot attempt to influence legislation. They cannot organize, engage in protests, petitions, boycotts, or strikes. They cannot assist, promote, or deter union organizing. They cannot engage in partisan political activities or other activities designed to influence the outcome of an election to any public office. They cannot impair existing service agreements for services or collective bargaining agreements. They cannot participate in or endorse events or activities that are likely to include advocacy for or against political parties, platforms, candidates, legislation, or elected officials. This is definitely, you know, we're in Iowa and we're getting to that time of year. So if you, by chance, your AmeriCorps member mentions that they're going to go to a town hall or they're going to go to some rally, anything like that, if you're just chatting with them and they ask what you doing this weekend and they say they're going to do that, remind them that they should not wear their AmeriCorps shirts and they shouldn't claim to be there as AmeriCorps members. They're there as their own person during that time. Members can also not engage in religious instruction, conduct worship services, provide instruction as part of a program that includes mandatory religious instruction or worship, construct or operate facilities devoted to religious instruction or worship, maintain facilities primarily or inherently devoted to religious instruction or worship, or engage in any form of religious proselytization. So this does not mean that AmeriCorps members cannot have a religion. That's not at all what that means. It just means that while they are on service, that religion takes a back seat to literacy or engaging teenagers. I talked to the members about this and what is and is not appropriate. You know, they can wear any religious garb that they may have that's important to them, or they can have information for them, you know, or they can wear things that are pertinent to their religion. But the things that we don't want to see would be encouraging students to participate in their church's youth group. Even though that might be harmless, you know, I'll talk to them about it, but you just never know how that seems. So it's just reminding them, and I know that sometimes students will bring up religion or they'll bring up politics, and I just inform the AmeriCorps members not to necessarily shut down that child's, you know, comment or anything, but to be kind, validate that student, and just move forward with the activities that they're working on. So, you know, they can have religious and political beliefs, but we definitely want to keep their focus on serving students in reading or in community engagement and the activities at hand. Other prohibited activities, it's an exhaustive list. AmeriCorps members cannot provide a direct benefit to a business organized for profit, a labor union, a partisan political organization, or a nonprofit that fails to comply with the 501c3 IRS code. And organizations engaged in religious activities described as an earlier as CNCS assistance is not to support the religious activities. So an AmeriCorps member could do an alternative service project, say at the mission in their food pantry, but they wouldn't be able to help support the religious, if they're having any other religious stuff that's going on there. AmeriCorps members cannot conduct a voter registration drive or use CNCS funds to conduct a voter registration drive. They cannot provide abortion services or referrals for receipt of such services, and they can not do anything that CNCS or the Iowa Commission, which is ICVS, may prohibit. They can't engage in these directly, and they also cannot engage in them indirectly by recruiting, training, or managing volunteers who might be doing one of these prohibited activities. AmeriCorps members can, in their own time, do any of these activities. They can do all these activities if they want to. They just cannot do them on AmeriCorps time, and they can't wear an AmeriCorps logo. So like, for example, over my lunch break, if I was gonna go and conduct a voter registration drive, that's on my own time. I wouldn't clock it to the AmeriCorps grant, so I wouldn't get paid for that. It'd be my own time. I always cover this with AmeriCorps members, but it's definitely important for supervisors to know in the case that we're constantly and pretty consistently partnering in this community. So just making sure that we're not putting our AmeriCorps members in situations that may be a little difficult for them. Fundraising guidelines. So AmeriCorps members may raise resources directly in support of pre-approved, program-appropriate service activities. Examples of fundraising that they can do include seeking donations of books from companies and individuals for a program in which volunteers teach children to read, writing a grant proposal to a foundation to secure resources to support training of volunteers, securing supplies and equipment from the community to enable volunteers to build houses for low-income individuals, securing financial resources from the community to assist in launching or expanding a program that delivers social services to the community, or seeking donations from alumni of the program for specific service projects. AmeriCorps members may not raise funds for their living allowance or raise funds for an organization's general operating expenses or endowment, and they cannot write grants for funding provided in a federal agency through like AmeriCorps grants, Senior Corps, or CNCS funding. When it comes to fundraising, I say we just don't do it, because since everyone here, except for Daniil and the MFC, you're outside organizations. So for me to be able to track funds that come from school book drives, it's pretty impossible, because I'd have to be able to track that information is not going into a general fund, that it's not going, into the amount of money that the school district pays to us for the AmeriCorps living allowance. So when it comes to things like the book fairs and whatnot, I just steer clear of all of that, because the amount of information that I have to track is probably pretty impossible. So it ends up being a lot more work for me and for you in the district or the organization that you serve with. That's worth it. So I would recommend that if you're going to have a fundraiser, whether it's a book drive or something else, that if you would like your AmeriCorps member there, that they are involved in nothing that is fundraising, that if they are there, that they can do something education-based. So maybe at the book drives, the AmeriCorps members could be in a room next door reading books for the students, or handing out information on literacy to parents at the book drives, things like that. So if you have questions about what they can do and what's, in too gray of an area, just reach out to me and I'm happy to, get creative with you, because there's lots of things we can do, but we just want to make sure that we're as black as white in these areas that we can. Members can spend no more than 10% of their time of service. So if they're 300 hours, that's 30 hours on fundraising. So we want them to spend it on serving their students. All right, so now we move into non-duplication and non-displacement. So non-duplication is basically that AmeriCorps members cannot exist in a role that already exists within a program. So I'll use the library as an example. So I'm picking on you, Danielle. Danielle would not be able to have an AmeriCorps member serving under her that is doing the same activities that one of her front desk librarians is doing. So that she's got a couple ladies, Sharon and Bailey, who handle the children's library up in the children's section. She would not be able to put an AmeriCorps member at that desk and say, all right, you're going to do the same thing that Bailey is doing, because essentially Bailey is probably getting paid a whole lot more than what an AmeriCorps member would be. So it's using funds that it's very unfair for the members, but it's also at that point, we don't need to be using AmeriCorps members for that. AmeriCorps members exist to allow organizations to expand programming, or be able to get to programming that wouldn't be able to happen without them. So the school district's a great example. Getting reading tutors at this sort of capacity would be very difficult without an AmeriCorps program. Then we move into non-displacement. So this is definitely an area that can be a little bit gray. So non-displacement is that an organization can't displace an employee or a position with an AmeriCorps member. So they can't reduce somebody's hours or wages, or fire somebody. I'll use my own self for this. So I have a 15-hour-a-week program assistant. Her name's Kim. If you haven't met her or gotten an email from her, Kim is my right hand, and she's going to be retiring in December. So I know that she's going to be retiring. I can't decide that instead of hiring out her position, that I am just going to get an AmeriCorps member, and that AmeriCorps member will do Kim's job for me instead. That would be displacing a position. So basically I'm eliminating a position, putting an AmeriCorps member in there because I don't want to pay somebody more, or I don't want to give employment benefits or things like that. If there is a position that may exist and because of funding can't happen otherwise, and it's going to go away, that can become an AmeriCorps position, but then it has to stay an AmeriCorps position. You can't just like fit AmeriCorps members in and out willy-nilly as we'd like to do, because of what is available to us. Basically, once we make that decision, we have to move forward with it and keep going on that. So any questions on non-displacement or non-duplication? If you can raise a hand or make a comment, but we can continue to move on while I wait for any of those questions. All right, so for member timesheets. So the AmeriCorps members, we moved about 2 years ago to Encore reports. I know that it's a lot more, or just a lot more convenient than Iowa grants used to be, but I know that there are some, a few little hiccups here and there. So you as supervisors will all have an account in Iowa grants as well, or in Encore reports as well. The AmeriCorps members submit their timesheets biweekly, and we need to have site supervisor approval by the Tuesday following those submissions. Something that does happen is when the member submits their timesheet, you'll get an automated email that will allow you to just click a link and get you to where you need to go, and you can sign in. It's very nice and convenient, but in the case that you cannot get in, I'm going to show you how you'll find your way. So hopefully, okay, great, you guys can see that. So this is the website. It's ia.encorereports.com, and core is spelled like CORPS as in AmeriCorps. Something to always note here, especially Caitlin, this is a really good thing to note for you, is that your current AmeriCorps member for the next couple weeks is still in 2018-19, but it has defaulted to 2019-2020. So if you're still approving timesheets before, you'll want to go in here and look at this. Otherwise, for everyone else, we're all in 2019-2020. So we will hit submit. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger for you. We are very nice and lucky because we are up here at the tip top for our AmeriCorps program. This web page, once you do submit to 2019-2020, it shows every program. That's one of the things I don't quite like about this, but we kind of get over it. So in here, you'll see that we, as AmeriCorps Partners in Learning, we have 2 programs. School district members, you'll be under here for K through 3rd grade program, and then Mentor Dubuque, Multicultural Family Center, and Carnegie Stout Public Library, you'll be down here in the teen program. From here, you'll see that there's program director, site supervisor, and AmeriCorps member options for links. You will all choose site supervisor. The AmeriCorps members choose AmeriCorps member, and my link is right here for myself. I am first going to choose AmeriCorps member and log in over here just to show you what it looks like for members. So when you first log in, you are going to be asked to change your password. Let me see if I can just use the one that already exists. Nope. So we have to change it when you first log in. All of yours will default to capital R reading with an exclamation point. So when you go in, that's where you'll be able to change it to something that fits your needs a little bit better. So when the AmeriCorps members log in, it tells them, it welcomes them, and it's going to tell them right away, your next timesheet is due on September 21st. So they click on that, brings them here, and you'll all actually be able to see this section as well. They'll have a approved hours section, a training, and a lunch, and then their total. Over here, they'll see their number of hours that they're enrolled in, how many hours they have left, and the expected end date for them. The number of days that's served, the average that they need to target to complete on time, what they're currently targeting, how many weeks they have left, and how many hours they need to average per week to actually reach the amount that they have left. So this is a nice, convenient place to just kind of see information. This table's a little bit confusing sometimes, so I usually give them reports on monthly basis on where they're at if they're not looking themselves. So I apparently don't have the option for to actually do my timesheet. I apparently didn't set myself up quite right. Oh, here we go. All right, so I want to enter timesheet. Nope. All right, well, it didn't work. Sorry, everyone. So we'll log out and go to the site supervisor section. We'll pretend that I submitted a timesheet. Log in here, asking you to change this again for the site supervisor section. Alrighty, so when you as site supervisors log in, you have a couple options to put on your home page. I highly recommend this as far as knowing member unlocked timesheets in the case that you need to reject a timesheet back to an AmeriCorps member, or if I reject one back. Having a missing timesheet notification. So if one of your members is a little bit late on theirs, and then having timesheets with late site supervisor approvals. That just is nice to see for yourself in the case that you thought you hit it and submitted it, but maybe you didn't. So that's kind of the best one there. Really nothing exists in reporting, so we don't really have to worry about that. Here you'll see we have approved member timesheets, filter member timesheets, total member hours for graph. Really the only things that you'll need to worry about as site supervisors is approving these member timesheets. You'll click on that. Currently there's nothing waiting for approval, but when you do come in here, there is a nice graph that will exist, and it'll have all the members' names and then the information from side to side on there. So I'm gonna hop out to my own and see if I'll be able to show you what these timesheets look like. On my side of things, I can see very much all the same things as you, but I just have a lot of like the setup information. So here, the timesheets, we have 3 different options. I have a enhanced one that does have a time in, time out option for the members. I have in the past, we used to just have members report, you know, that they spent 8 hours in a day, but unfortunately, I've become a little bit more jaded over the last few years in that I'd rather have time in, time out, because we've had some issues where, you know, it's hard to track if people are being honest or not. So we track in 15-minute increments. So you may often see maybe a member did get there at 5:25. The closest that they should bring themselves to would be 5:30. But if it's, you know, 5:10 or 5:05, you know, again to 5, or just rounding to the closest 15 minutes. Site supervisor approval language, I'm just going to move save to next. There are 3 different category options that the member has options for. The first one is service, and in those categories they can choose for on-site service, approved, alternative service, or planning. So for the school district members, on-site service, that would probably be pretty much everything that they're doing in the building. There is an area here for planning in the case that they need to go down to the library and find a couple books for certain students, or that they need some planning time to kind of get their materials together. So, you know, that is something that if you can, giving your members a little bit of time to get themselves in order for the day, just so that they can come in prepared, that is all time that they can count towards service. If they need to do anything off-site, please let me know so I'm aware of that and can make sure that we're documenting it appropriately. I'm usually pretty open to that. I just need to make sure that, you know, something's actually happening and they're not just counting hours. Then we do have approved alternative service here. So if members are doing something off-site, they want to volunteer at a Mentor Dubuque activity and they're not a Mentor Dubuque member, I will take care of approving and making sure and watching all of this, everything that is on approved alternative service. So I make sure and double check that for you. Then in the third area of the categories, or the second, we have AmeriCorps training. So that is those monthly meetings that they'll spend with me. I will again check all of that for in and out times. Site training would be any training that the site requires of them. So typically in their first 2 weeks is probably that site-related training. And then approved alternative training. So if there's a conference or something happening that is appropriate that they can count that as service, I'll also handle that as well. And then there is lunch. Lunch does not count towards their service unless if they are eating lunch with the students and actively engaging with them. No sitting on their phones. They need to be actively engaging with them. If they are taking a lunch, it needs to be a minimum of 15 minutes since that's the increment. I would say that they should go into a lounge or a space that they can have a peaceful lunch and have a break. As you see here, the members' due dates are on Saturdays. So that's the final day of the pay period. I'm okay with them if they turn them in on Sunday, but Saturday or Sunday because I want to come in on Monday and have that submitted and approved. Right now it says Monday here, but you know, if you can do it Monday, that's great. Tuesday, if at all possible. Moving into the next section, this will show us what it looks like for the members to fill out and submit and when we look at it. So over here, we have this time in section. So they'll be able to choose the hour. So let's say that they're coming in at 9:15 a.m. and then time out to, you know, maybe they're checking out at 2:30 p.m. So you'll see they have hour and minute. We're moving away from the little radio buttons from last year. They'll choose approved alternative service, and then they can come over here. Their site will actually, it'll default them to if they were at the Carnegie Stout Public Library, but they'll be able to choose from all of the different sites that we have here so that, especially for alternative service, that I can monitor where they actually were. And then they can list a description here. I'm only going to have them do that for approved alternative service for my use. Everything else will keep that with no descriptions. Accompaniment, that typically will not be important for this year. Moving forward to next year, we'll cover that. And then it will total up their hours at the end here. So 5:25, if you know they put a lunch in here. So let's say at 2:30 they took their lunch. Oops. So apparently there we go, 2:30. And then at 2:45 they were done with their lunch. They're gonna check that off there, but it doesn't total it towards that. So lunch does not total in there. When you go and head down here, there will be for them a save and submit or save and submit or just a save option. They'll be able to do that. For site supervisors, there's a section that just says, yes, I approve their hours. I believe everyone here, or almost everyone, has approved timesheets, but it is pretty straightforward. You have the option to approve and you have the option to reject and also to have a comment just like this does down here. So if you do put a comment and you reject a timesheet back to a member, that comment will be sent to them in an email. Any questions on timesheet tracking for members? All right. I do also want to touch base on another thing that we're having for members this year. I used to do something called, it was called Rallyhood. Rallyhood, not technically very nice, or it just was kind of failing, and we had issues with it this summer. So I've transitioned to something called BuddyDo. For the members, it's a requirement. We can invite the supervisors to it for your convenience to just kind of see. But this is just a place that I can use electronically to just communicate with the members, get things to them. It'll send automated emails. So I have reminders for timesheets that are due, student logs that are due. For events is all of the trainings that we have for them are already in here. Albums, so if there were any great photos that they may have taken at a service project, they can add them in here. And then files, this is really kind of the big reason why I use this, is so everything that I give them in trainings or anything that I require from them, I can put an electronic copy in here. So I'll send out the link on how to join BuddyDo to the supervisors in the case that you would like to be able to access this information and just to be, you know, on the same page with them. But I'll also communicate all of these information as far as events and whatnot. There is a nice, you know, polls. So at our monthly meetings, we do a potluck. So they'll come in here, I believe somebody, Judy Kelly, had already gone in here and said what she was going to bring at one point. So lovely lady. And then there would also be like maybe there's a phone book section that members can add their information into. So it's just nice and way to just communicate and be on the same page. So I'll send that link out to everyone as well. All right. So moving from there is the site supervisor timesheets. We use for site supervisor timesheets, unfortunately, we cannot use Encore reports. The Iowa Commission has said no to that. So we have to use an Excel spreadsheet, which is a little bit inconvenient. New standards from the Iowa Commission is that we have to have signatures on the individual timesheets when supervisors send them in now. So I actually have to send out to each of the coaches from last year the timesheets so that you can sign each of them. I will send you, I will send them in an envelope. They'll all be printed out for you already. All I need you to do is sign them, and then I will I'll pack another envelope in there that's already stamped and everything for you to send that back. So I will be getting those out in the next couple weeks. I'll send them to attention to you at your school, and if you'll just go through and sign the pages a couple of times for me, that would be great. And then timesheets, I'll need them on the 1st of every month. So just to go over through the site supervisor timesheets, you'll see here we have, it's 2019-2020. Up here, I've kind of just done a blank one. Just fill out your school and your name and the information up here on these. And then from there, you have the drop-down options for, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on here for you all. So you'll have drop-downs. You'll choose the day and the activity that you're doing. So if you're meeting with your AmeriCorps member, that is site supervisor time. If you're meeting with staff about your AmeriCorps member, so instructional coaches, if you're meeting with classroom teachers about building schedules, count that time. If you're preparing materials for your AmeriCorps members, approving their hours, completing your timesheets, communicating with me, and if you're completing their midterm or end of the year reports or evaluations, or if you're doing more than one of the above or something else, you'll just put that in there. And I would say, you know, go with the closest 15 minutes that you can. So right here, the drop down is actually, I don't go more than 2, because for the most part, you're not spending every waking moment of your time with the AmeriCorps members. And I understand that. So if it is more than that, talk to me, and then we can adjust the timesheet to let you really focus on that a little bit. But we ask that you submit or document as much time as you can, because what this does is your time is used as in-kind time towards our grant. So it's basically fake money. Your time is used basically as fake money that allows us to get real money that it can pay the AmeriCorps program, and therefore the AmeriCorps members, and allow us to get those. So it is very valuable to be able to track this, but we do want you to track it honestly as well. But the other things to note is when it comes to tracking your time, the time that you spend with your AmeriCorps members and the more time that you are in supervising them, it does build a good relationship between you and your AmeriCorps member. And it also creates, I think that supervising and counting your time and the more time you spend is a great retention tool, because if you're building that relationship with your member, the likelihood of them coming back next year is great. And I know past, our coaches have said in the past that having someone who's had the experience in the last year is just incredibly beneficial. And I would agree, it is for me too. And we always try that. Sometimes it works out for people and sometimes it doesn't. But we always strive for that. And the other piece to it too is that we want them to have the best experience that they can, you know, whether they come back next year or maybe they're future teachers in the district, that they can pull from this experience and it's something meaningful, and that they can share it with other people and say, hey, I served at Sageville Elementary last year. I would, you know, you should really think about doing it this year because I can't. You know, word of mouth is a great recruitment tool for them. Down here, there's signature. So if you can print it, sign, and you can fax, email, or mail it to me. Or if you want to hold on to a couple at a time, I can pick them up from you. I'll do whatever I can to reduce the inconvenience factor for all of you, because you're doing us a wonderful favor by being with our AmeriCorps members. Yes, so we've got here something to note. Every month is on here, so I would just say using the same spreadsheet and documenting it in there. So we will also be documenting your time as well, but just saving this, and this will get sent out to you. I'll be sending an email at the end of the day to everyone with all of this information as well. All right, any questions on site supervisor time? And please do send it to me at least by the 1st of every month. I'll also try to send maybe just a reminder. I'll try to send a reminder. I can't promise anything. I can barely remember my own brain. All right, moving on to member orientation. So for member orientations for this year, the AmeriCorps members, I will have them for 7 hours on the first day of their service. We will do all of the City of Dubuque's payroll documentation. I will go over the member service agreement, all of the member policy manual information in there as well. So basically by the time they get to you, they're going to be policied out. But I will go over things like dress code and cell phone policy, as well as, you know, how you treat children and all of that. So I'm finishing up on that policy manual today. I had a couple of things I wanted to add before the members start on Monday. So I'll send that out in an email so that you can review them. The school district training for the members starting on the 9th, that will be on the 11th, and that's going to be from 9:30 to 11:30. Based off of what the district has said, is that is going to be a overview on everything. It's not going to be a very intensive training on everything, because each school is utilizing AmeriCorps members in very specific interventions. So they didn't want to train on everything and it not work out. So they are asking the coaches to train their members individually, you know, in more in-depth interventions based off of what you're using. Again, this is only for the school district training, is only for school district members. Moving into the monthly member meetings, they are the second Friday of every month from 12 to 3 p.m. I am extending them 1 extra hour to the end of the day, just because by the end of the day on those Fridays, when they left at 2 p.m., going back to the school usually wasn't a good option for them. And I've heard that there's the information we did last year was good, but the members would really benefit from being able to share a little bit more of their experience and ideas, tips, tricks, all of that. So I'm going to pack that in as a time frame that they can work with other schools. For these trainings, the first one, September 13th, I'm at a conference that day, so it's only going to be there from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. It's disaster response in the volunteer reception center training with RSVP. So in the case that we have a flood or some sort of disaster, things like that, and we need to call the AmeriCorps members out of the school to help with that disaster, they'll be ready to go and pre-trained for all of it. We will cover kind of an intro to equity on October 11th. In November, we will be covering bias. The 13th, we'll talk about race. January, we'll talk about privilege. February, intersectionality. March will be empowerment. And the 10th will be just talking to the members about how they can, use equity in their own lives. The focus for all of these equity trainings is pulled from the Dubuque community or the city of Dubuque's equity trainings. I know that a lot of equity work is happening in the schools. Taj and I had developed these last year, and I intend to do them every year moving forward to make sure that we are serving our students the best that we can and being inclusive to their needs and their cultures as well. And then on April 30th, 2019, that will be a Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. That is the end of service recognition ceremony. So that's the reflection projects for the AmeriCorps members. I moved it up like a week from last year because for the last 2 years, I've just always been conflicting with something happening at the school district. So I hope that all of the coaches will be able to attend this year. It is a very lovely training. I do record them all, but it usually takes me a little bit of time before I can actually get those recordings processed and up. So we'd love to have you come to that. It's only the school district members presenting. Mentor Dubuque Multicultural Family Center at Carnegie Stout, they will present at the end of the summer. And then we will have summer meetings, but I haven't determined those dates yet. Got to wait for the school district dates and hopefully no winter cancellations this year. All right, that is pretty much everything that I needed to share with all of you. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or anything that they'd like to share out? All right, I don't see any hands. Oh, we got something. Oh, thanks, Emily. The Excel spreadsheet is a document that I will send to you. So it will just be an Excel sheet that I send to you. Oh, we got a question from Bridget. Yes, the AmeriCorps members, basically starting from the 9th, their first day is on the 9th, so moving forward from there, that is all service hours. So it'll be on the clock with them and on the clock with you as well. Perfect. All right. Well, I didn't see any other questions coming in. So thank you all for popping in. I appreciate you taking the time out of the day, and I'll be in touch soon. Have an awesome weekend and have a great start of the program year next week.